So as you know, my name is Allison Reed, and I'm spelled R-E-A-D. You can call me Mrs. Reed, because I'm an English teacher. So at the beginning of every semester, I get two questions, same two questions. The first one is, hey, Mrs. Reed, do you like to read? So fortunately, I do like to read, and I've been reading for years, and that, that satisfies them. The second question is, did you know you were going to be an English teacher because your name is Mrs. Reed? So that takes a little longer to answer because I've only been an English teacher for about 4 years, but I've carried the name Reed for 25. I celebrated my 25th wedding anniversary this month. Thank you. Thank you. So when I took the name Reed, I was very happy because my maiden name was Berkowitz. And yeah, so all through school I got a lot of hey Burke, which was funny for other people. And then when I was in the reserves, I got a lot of Lieutenant Berkowitz, which was funny for a brief period. So when I took on the name Reed, I was like, it's white bread, because I'm Jewish, and I was like, it's a nice white bread, kind of a plain, nice name. It's short, it's got 4 letters. What could be better? So obviously, didn't know I was going to become an English teacher. I began my career, I had a degree in speech communications from Westchester University, which basically prepared me to do nothing. So fortunately, I was a good writer, and I spent some years as a journalist, and then I spent some years writing for some trade magazines, and then I was in the Army Reserves. I worked with a public affairs unit, which is media. I was worked in human resources for a little while, and did staff training and development. Then I kind of took a sideline and went into health and fitness, and I was teaching fitness classes, personal training, running fitness departments. And all the while I realized I really enjoyed the teaching aspect of everything that I did. I was also in the Army Reserve, so I did a lot of Army-like things. I drove a tank, I shot an M60, I threw a grenade, I crawled through a foxhole, I ate dirt. I did all that stuff. But the journey I took to becoming an English teacher, really, I didn't get there until about 4 years ago. And I had 4 kids, and I was working all sorts of jobs, and I decided it was time to go back to school and get my, advanced degree, and I decided to go back to school for education. So I got a degree in elementary education and got my state teaching certificate and was all set to get a job. And then there were apparently a lot of people out there who were elementary school teachers, and I couldn't find one. So I spent a year subbing, and during that year I subbed in all sorts of different classes, and I kept my spirits up. I thought, I'm going to get a job. It's all going to happen for me. So in May of 2010, I had just finished up a year of subbing. I was, summer was coming. That's the big job search time for teachers. And it was Mother's Day. And my husband and I were getting ready to go to Longwood Gardens and spend a quiet day, because 3 days later, my husband, who is an insulin-dependent diabetic, had been having some heart problems, and he was going to have surgery the following Wednesday. So we're getting ready to go, and he gets a phone call, and that phone call is telling him that he no longer has his job. He's being let go immediately. He has no severance. And his insurance will last until the end of the month. Fortunately, it covered the surgery. So what followed was 4 months of a lot of anxiety. He came home from the hospital, and within 3 days he was searching for a job. And we spent the entire summer looking for jobs. And I was at the point where I would have taken anything, anything for benefits, for some kind of income. And by the end of the summer, I found a job working for an education company, not teaching, but working at the corporate office in Baltimore, which was an hour-and-a-half commute for me. But I needed the job, so I decided I was going to go for it. And I drove 5 months back and forth to Baltimore, making a salary that I would be embarrassed to tell you, but we had benefits, and made it work. I had 4 children and a house and car payments, and that's what you do. So at about 4 months, I applied for a job with a online charter school. And over the summer, I also took my certificate test for English because I thought I got to make myself more marketable. And my best subject in school was always English. I was a writer. I had writing published in newspapers and magazines. I loved to read, and I figured, why not? And I took the test. I passed it. So now I have my English certificate. I was called by this charter school to interview as an elementary school teacher. I interviewed with elementary school teachers. We loved each other. We were kissing. We were talking about centers and crafts and all that stuff. I go home, and then about 2 weeks later, I'm called and I'm offered a job teaching high school English online. So, long story short, I've been doing that for 4 years. And when I teach my students, we talk a lot about theme and genre and metaphor and simile. And what we have talked about a lot is our lives. I have students that have babies and have to go to charter school online because they can't go to a regular school. They have to stay home and watch their children. I have students who are homeless at times, but they have their computer and they can still go to school. I have students that have to work full-time to support themselves or help support their family, and charter school helps them to still get their high school diploma. And what we've come to realize is that the road trip doesn't have to be in a car. The road trip is the trip you make every day. And no matter how long it takes you to get where you have to go. Sometimes you go down a one-way street the wrong way. Sometimes you hit a dead end, you gotta turn around, start over again. But you keep going, and you keep pushing, that road trip will eventually get you where you want it to go.